Morning drop. It's Tuesday, and you guys know the deal. My guy Charlie Five is here with me to talk a little bit about what Hugh Freeze had to say after Missouri, but before Kentucky. Guys, let's drop it on him.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. You guys know the deal. My guy Charlie Five is joining me to talk about what Hugh Freeze had to say to the media. Charlie, it was another disappointing Saturday for the Auburn Tigers versus Missouri. Finding ways to lose has kind of been a theme of this season. You and Guy talked before we started recording. Auburn is having a hard time finding plays when they need them.
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like is happening. And usually, he talks about the razor thin margin of error. Usually it's one play here, one play there. But I felt like in this Missouri game, there were multiple opportunities, 10 times, maybe more, that you could have, if you made one more play or converted one more score, you put the game away, and you just couldn't do it. You just could not find a way to do it. And that's probably the most frustrating part of all, because this may feel like even Oklahoma, this maybe feels like the more winnable game of all of them. And you kind of had control of the game for the most of it, and you just you couldn't do it, man.
Yeah, look, but the opportunities were there. The opportunities that you mentioned were there. Hugh Freeze said he feels like everything's going wrong for his team right now. Let's start with what he had to say about the Murphy's Law that is Auburn's offense.
You can't have lapses or bad calls or bad execution at critical moments, and we've played two top 20 teams in the last 3 weeks, or at least they were ranked that at the time, and have had the lead in the fourth quarter and not able to finish. It's incredibly disappointing and frustrating, for sure. I've never had a season, and I guess it's my 32nd season counting high school. Just have only had one regular season losing record, and this is seems like that every winnable game has not gone our way.
Seems like every winnable game has not gone our way, but certainly coaching has something to do with that. It feels to me like Auburn is still searching for an identity on offense.
Yeah, sure. And they're sort of taking on the identity of the emotions right there that Hugh Freeze is giving you. This is rarefied air for me. I don't know what this is like. I've never really experienced this in my, the whole career. That's kind of what he's saying. It's almost like I'm not 1,000% sure what to do here. It's sort of just it's going wrong, and I'm trying everything that I can, and I'm not able to right the ship. And this is not something that I'm used to. This is not something that I've really dealt with. And you feel like that. You almost can feel that from the way the team performs too. That they can't figure out a way either, and they're pressing the same way because they're sort of feeling it from the head coach. And I think at some point in time, you got to let that go. You know what they say? You got to forget the last play and go to what you know. Like go to what you know. Like do what you know how to do. And even if that were to yield turnovers, even if that were to yield mistakes, like we can't continue to play scared. You can't continue to play with this timidness, with this like you're just nervous. You're just afraid to make a mistake. I just don't see how this team you're going to see more and more of the same. I feel like unless something changes.
Well, that takes us into play calling, right? Playing, yes. Like you're playing not to lose, or you're playing not to make a mistake. A question was asked to him on play calling, and he addressed what you just said. So let's take a look at what he had to say.
Yeah, it's a challenge, this morning, we're trying to get to the basis of the Kentucky plan in, and got a stream of players that I want to see and spend time with, and so that's been in and out, and I've been in and out, and but I'm pretty clear with the guys what I think that we can do, and I think we're all in agreement and in alignment on that. The play calling part has been obviously Nick's does some of it, Kent does some of it, but I've for sure had my share of it. Has been it's 4 hours of stress. It's 4 hours of man feeling like you have to have the perfect call for us right now. That we don't have a lot of erasers. We don't have a lot of. We just don't have a lot of the margin for error. Seems so small, and maybe that's the feeling that has you feeling like, man, we've got to get this. Like I wanted to when we got that ball to take a shot, and shoot, 5 years ago I'd have done that and not worried. But then you're 2nd and 10, and you're like, God, we didn't give it to 27, and we should have, and. But then we give it to 27, and we don't execute it exactly right. And
does that scare you a little bit? I'm not running my offense. There's so much to unpack there, but it worries me a little bit that they feel like they can't run at least something close to the version of the offense that they're used to running.
No, I mean, yeah, I may have jumped ahead a little bit, but yeah, it's the nervousness and the stress that he talks about. You can that's the way the offense looks. It looks hard. It looks like even the things that you do, the things that you succeed at look difficult. It looks like it's difficult to actually achieve it. And I think that's sort of taking on the mindset of the way Hugh is reacting right here in this downtime, this time where, I had a lot of high hopes. I had this thing built around, and we started turning the ball over, and now I have to rethink everything. And I think that's what has to stop. I think that's what's killing this team is, and I do believe that obviously there's some execution issues and guys not doing exactly what they're supposed to do, but hey, you've been in it in life. When you're stressed out, when you're like thinking too hard about something, you're going to screw it up. Like you have to like just go natural. And when he says 5 years ago, I would have taken that shot. Like take the shot, like still take the shot. We can't be worrying about what the media is going to ask us whenever we should have given it to Jarquez. Like that can't be on your mind. It has to be what we know, how this system works. And this system works by taking shots, getting one-on-one coverages, taking advantage of 50-50 opportunities, and then popping some big runs. And I think we've gotten away from that because we're too worried about making mistakes. And you may lose a game by more than you may lose a game by more than a touchdown.
Yeah.
You may not cover the spread with turnovers and things like that. But my gracious, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to have everybody sort of needing to smoke a cigarette on the sideline because everybody's stressed out over play to play. So I think something's got to give there.
Well, a big part of the system is the RPO. Now, I had a chance to ask Hugh Freeze about the RPO. After the game, he said they were able to essentially neutralize their RPO game. Here's what he had to say about Missouri stopping the RPO.
Coach, you talked about after the game, they were able to take the RPO game away from you. Can you, in your words, describe how they were able to do that, and what's your pivot? When teams try to do the same thing to you in the future.
Well, I mean, the box is a good box to run against, so you hand it off, and I don't know what our average rush was. I can't remember, but it was pretty solid. So that is the answer. I had a feeling, they were going, window those safeties pretty deep and play some outside tip coverage on our single guy to the boundary. And but again, they can't do that and still have you outnumbered in the box. And so I thought we were pretty effective at at running it most of the day. They had some good plug deals with their backers that caused us problems in the second half some. But they definitely were not going to let us sit there and throw RPOs for sure. So you got to be able to run the football.
Now they tried to run the football, not on the first drive. Jarquez didn't touch the ball on the first drive. They got behind the chains trying to do whatever they were trying to do there. But I think the answer I was looking there, what is your pivot if the RPO is not working? What do you think here, Charlie? Like, is there a version of this thing, man, that these coaches can cook up over the last half of the season? You got 5 games left to figure out something, because we don't have the clip, but there was another moment in this press conference where Hugh Freeze kind of casually mentioned having to re-recruit his roster. And if he's doing that mid-season, that tells me there may be some guys unhappy with their role currently in how you're executing this offense.
That was a fascinating answer to me. And not that I don't like believe it, but like, so what he was basically saying was, I misremember the solid yards per carry, if that he remembers, but well, the way it sounds like is I've never seen a team, heard of a defense that's daring you to run the ball. And is that not kind of what he was saying, is that Missouri took the P out of the RPO by giving us a favorable box and basically daring us to run the ball, which I assume they felt like they had a mismatch there, or either that, or they felt like if they made us drive longer, we would eventually screw it up, which we did. Hey, we'll give them the run so that they can't hit us with the pass and make big plays. And eventually, if they have to go, 8, 9, 10 plays, they'll screw it up. So, but the problem was we couldn't run the ball. The problem was, so we were getting the favorable numbers to run the ball, and we couldn't get a good push. A lot of times there was we had 6 out of 12 drives, I think, went 3 and out, and I think on all 6 of those you ran it on first down and didn't get anything from it. If you go back and look at it, I think that's right. It may not have been all Jarquez, it may have been some of Peyton too, but I think you ran it on first down a lot, and you weren't getting a ton. So in response to his answer is, he says correctly, well, the response is when you have the numbers, you run the ball. That's what you do. You pound the ball if they give you the numbers. But the problem is we couldn't run the ball.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the solid yards per carry. So that was a fascinating answer. I've never heard of a defense taking away the pass and daring you to run, which if you would have asked us before the game, if that's the strategy, what would you have said? We're going to kill them.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
It should be noted, Missouri is 3rd in the conference in total yards allowed, total defense allowed. 157 yards through the air, 115 yards on the ground. It looks like they held Auburn under their averages. So, 176 yards passing allowed, which looks like it was a little over what they were allowing. And then on the ground, 115 yards. It held true. Auburn only mustered 110 rushing yards in this one. So they were pretty close to holding Auburn to exactly what they've been allowing all season, which is not a lot. And that's bad news for a offense that's struggling to score, particularly in the red zone. Before we move on to the last clip, there was a point in this game where I know Peyton takes a lot of heat, Charlie, and you and I talked about this. I don't like the conversation centered around Peyton because there's nothing we can say that hasn't been said already.
Yeah.
But I do think, despite how difficult it was for the offense, he had a throw to win this game, and he made it. And
he did.
The ball was not caught. It was Robert Lewis on the other end of that pass, the transfer receiver from Georgia State. Very disappointing. It just feels like later in the game, Sam Jackson had crossing route over the middle that if it's caught, maybe you're in field goal range. Again, Auburn fails to execute in critical situations, but also slow starts have plagued the Tigers. They can't play from behind because they can't score. So can they get out in front? Here's what Hugh Freeze had to say about Auburn's slow starts.
Not really. I mean, that one there, let's start with what really happened. I mean, we get a penalty on special teams, which we've had too many of those. Offensively, we're like one of the best in the nation at lack of penalties. Special teams, we're not good. And it started us on the 5-yard line, and we totally MA'd on the first play of the game and take a sack. So you're not going to be aggressive and recover from that on the first drive of the game. I don't care what game I'm coaching in. We're probably not fixing to do something really stupid right there other than try to get us a little field position and punt the football, and which we did, and our defense held them, I think, or they missed a field goal or something after that. I can't remember, but it wasn't a touchdown. I do know that. So that's I can't go back and remember all the other first drives, but that one was a tough one. I mean, you get the penalty that puts you back inside the 5, and then you give up a sack the very first play on a quick game, which the ball's coming out, or should come out like that. And, I mean, we literally didn't have time to throw it, which means we totally MA'd that. So that's what killed the first drive.
Whew. Okay, so Auburn got behind the chains. He talked about not wanting to do anything crazy from his own 5-yard line and playing it safe, but he's right. Like, they're not highly penalized, but the penalties are always critical.
Yeah.
How do you fix this, man? Is this a culture issue in your mind? I have trouble with, they had a week to prepare. They had an extra week to prepare. This was coming off a bye week. He said last week, I'll be really frustrated if we don't execute in critical situations coming off a bye week. And here we are having the same conversation about Auburn executing in critical situations.
And I don't really know what to say. I really don't know what else to say to that. I mean, you're right. You had, I think, 2 really critical holding penalties. One that was either right before a turnover, like you had a holding penalty, and then you fumble on the very next play. And I think it was after negated a pretty nice play on first down. Yeah, it was. It was a first down screen play, and you get like 7 or 8 yards to Robert Lewis, oddly enough. And then I think you got a holding call, and it goes back 10, and then you fumble the next play. There's just multiple times where you just sort of wilt, or just you're not focused in critical situations. It's becoming a theme, and like I really don't know what you do to fix it. It seems like it's just in the DNA of this team this year in 2024. That's just kind of who they are.
Yeah. Look, who they are is something that Hugh Freeze will have to continue to try to figure out here towards the end of the season. Look, they've got Kentucky coming, and believe it or not, there are still a lot of statement games you have left on this schedule. Kentucky would be a good win. We just saw Florida post 48 on them last weekend on that Kentucky defense. You've got a Vandy team that is now top 25, Texas A&M top 25. Alabama top 25. ULM should be win number 3 at least, but it feels like there's some opportunities to get morale going the right direction. Charlie, I'm worried about this freshman class sticking around if this season continues to trend down and they can't get some feel good here before the end.
No, I mean, that's obviously everybody's fear. The only thing that you look at is a lot of these young guys are playing a ton of time, and they're getting rewarded handsomely in NIL. So there's freshmen that are that seem to be like they want to change the culture. They want to be the difference makers, and they're getting a lot of snaps, a lot of quality snaps. They're playing a lot of good football. A lot of times when you see players bolt, it's players that are not really getting a ton of playing time, guys that aren't getting a ton of snaps. So my hope is, like you said, you can steal some wins, build some momentum, and keep letting these young guys get experience and understand that they're it moving forward. Like, you're the guys. Not only are you, not only are you going to be the guy next year, you're gaining valuable experience this year. You're making good money, and you could be the sort of the cornerstone of helping Auburn turn this thing around.
Yeah, that's the hope. When you talk about those guys who aren't getting playing time, the first guy that pops in my mind is Perry Thompson.
Sure.
Please, Perry, do not go. I think Auburn needs to hold this class together. Obviously, he's worried about it. He mentioned it. What I'm not worried about is whether Charlie's going to join me next week to talk about what Hugh Freeze has to say after Kentucky. So, Charlie, I want to thank you for joining me. Before we get out here, tell people where they can find you.
Absolutely. Subscribe to thebarnauburn.com. You can get all the info that you can handle. We got team info, recruiting info, all kind of good stuff, and then a lot of opinions, takes, and great conversation as well. So check it out. Check us out at thebarnauburn.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube page at The Barn Auburn as well. You can get my daily show, the Top Button Podcast, as well as Zach and Brad Law, the Village Vice, and then Hoops Pod, really getting ready to fire up some hoops with Zep Jasper as well.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Morning Drop. This Morning Drop is brought to you by our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code RAPPORT to get 15% off your order there. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has you covered. Again, rogueshop.com. Use code RAPPORT to get 15% off. We'll be back at you guys with more Morning Drop tomorrow morning. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.
Drop!